Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. This week, my guest is Julie Ingmeyer, and she runs the Etsy shop Jam On Gifts. And I'm so excited to have Julie on because I feel like there's so many things that I want to talk to Julie about that we've touched on in previous episodes, and it's all wrapped up in Julie. So Julie, thank you so much for being my guest, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ajama. Thank you so much for having me. I just really enjoy this podcast so much, and I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Oh, thank you. Before we jump into it, though, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I am a mom. I live in central Minnesota. I'm a maker. I identify and describe myself as a maker. Yeah. I've never been comfortable with calling myself an artist, but I know I'm something different than just than a crafter. Yeah. But yeah, so I love my life here in central Minnesota, and I've been a maker my whole life, and Etsy is keeping me very busy, and I love it.
That's nice. Now, even though you consider yourself a crafter and a maker, do you consider what you make art?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, because there's the creativity that goes into it, the thought and planning, and the creative juices that flow. And, you know, maybe some things I do and some things I don't. So I'm kind of having a hard time with that one. Yeah. But yeah, there is a creative process, you know, with some things. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I consider it art, so I wanted to know what you thought too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your Etsy journey. First, how did you discover Etsy?
I'm not even really sure. I've always known about Etsy. I remember when Etsy was getting started.
You do?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, because I had been selling online for a few years already before Etsy came around. And I had been working with a group of really motivated, talented women who were trying to put together something not like Etsy, but a collaborative website where it was called Common Threads, and artists would send items in, and then they were mailed out as they were ordered. And so we were really looking closely at what else was going on, how other people were selling online. And so I remember when Etsy was first starting, but I just never considered Etsy as an option for me for some reason, for a long time. Yeah. So
now, Common Threads, the collaborative, does it still exist today?
No, it doesn't. It was a really special thing that happened. There were a group of, like I said, maybe about 5 or 6 of us that we lived in different states. Okay. And we just did all of our work together online. We had a beautiful website, a number of different artists that contributed, and they would send all of their product into one person. So we had one member of our group that had like a house full of product. And we had a good thoughts, great intentions, but we just didn't have what the Etsy folks do.
Now, do you know of that group, were you the only one who migrated over to Etsy eventually, or do you think everyone, or do you know if everyone eventually kind of meandered over?
There are others that have moved over. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you started off with your own website. Were you selling your artwork or your hand? In fact, before I ask you that, what do you sell and make?
So I'm make and sell a number of different types of items, gifts and accessory type items. And what they all have in common, what ties all these objects together, is the theme is they're all related to my most favorite band in the world, Fish. That's with a PHISH. And so I sell jewelry and some household items, maybe mugs and magnets and just different items. But the common theme is fish. It's fan art.
Oh,
That's what it is. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing for 25 years.
So even with common threads, were you making fan art for fish?
I wasn't, although my customers were fish fans. So
Okay.
I was sewing and I was making and I was designing and selling patchwork clothing, which was very, very popular in the fish community. And you couldn't buy that in stores. So, you made your own or you found other people who could sew.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did for years. It was handmade, one-of-a-kind clothing.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
you cater to a very, very specific market. People who shop in your Etsy store it's a small group, but a very dedicated, committed group of people.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Very.
so then that has certain implications, because on the one hand, one might think, okay, well, if I only cater to just this one band's fan group, will I, be busy enough? Will I have enough business coming in the doors? But on the other hand, if you do, and you're a fan too, you know exactly what people who belong to that group like. And so it's easier for you, I would imagine, to come up with products to sell to that market. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, absolutely. I did have those thoughts, like when I chose the name of my shop, Jam on Gifts, I didn't choose like a fish specific name. I chose that name because I was thinking, so I really love Fish, but I do kind of like a couple other bands too, and I'm just starting to go there, make products for others. But I did wonder, is this just too narrow of a market? Am I, and I found out very quickly the answer is no. So, I think it helps me. I think that's the secret to my success, is that I cater to a very specific group of people, and I know those people. I know who they are. I know where they are. I know what they do. I know what they like.
Yeah.
I know them.
Yeah.
So.
And so in your first year of selling on Etsy, you opened your shop in 2015. Within that first year, you hit the 1,000 sales mark.
I did, on my birthday even.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So let's talk about how that worked, because most Etsy sellers, well, I shouldn't say most because I don't have any statistics, but a lot don't easily hit that number, and most especially not in the first year. So would you attribute that to the fact that you took the time to find your niche, and you knew who your target market was, or would you attribute it to other things too, like you really focused on your titles and your tags and keywords and photographs, all the general things that Etsy tells us we need to do?
Yeah. No, all those things that Etsy tells us we need to do, I'm only just starting to do those right now. Okay. So, for me, it was two things. It was the fact that I found my niche, that I know my market, And then I created a really fantastic item that has brought a lot of attention to my store within that group. So, yeah.
And let's talk about the attention, because when you do something that really takes off, you have a shop that's very successful in the first year, it's likely that people are going to notice that and then start to copy what you're doing. Have you had to deal with any of that?
Yeah, I have. Absolutely. I do. There is another store that has copied my best-selling item. And they're selling it, alongside me on Etsy. She copied my design. I did contact her and, asked her to remove the listing when I discovered this.
And did she?
No, she doesn't care. She doesn't care. And I'm not alone. She's copied other people's items, but I'm not the only Etsy seller that's had this experience either. I've heard from a lot of people that, have either done a search on Etsy and found that someone copied them, or that's to me is, what can you do about it? Well, I don't want to dwell on it, because I receive a message from someone saying, hey, did you know that this other store copied your item? And it's like, yeah, I know. Like, you don't need to tell me.
Okay.
But yeah, what can you do?
So Julie, one of the things I like that you did is, because you sell fan art, you actually took the time to reach out to the band and ask for permission to use their lyrics or to do what you're doing. How easy or difficult was that? Because I know that's an issue that some sellers face sometimes when they make products that use someone else's intellectual property or trademarked property. What was that process like for you? And was it easy? Was it hard? What happened?
I did my homework, and the band is very, very clear about what is okay and what is not okay when it comes to using their intellectual property. Okay. For example, you can't use their logo or the name PHISH. So they're very clear about that, but they're also very, very supportive of the fan art community. Okay. And there is an organization called Fan Art, PHAN. Fan Art. A guy named Pete started this organization years ago. And all the information, he has almost like there's like a guide for people who sell fan art, explaining what is okay and what's not okay. Mm-hmm. So I just kept emailing. Fish, just like, I want to verify, and they haven't responded, but I was able to check in after reading all the documents very carefully at the fan art site. Mm-hmm. And then I contacted Pete from Fan Art, and I just want to be clear. Can you use lyrics? Yes, that is okay. Not the whole song, but you can use lyrics. So I have this item that I sell that has fish lyrics on it, lyrics from a song. And this comes up. Sometimes people feel that since I didn't write those lyrics, that the item that I make is not my design to protect because it's not my lyrics. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's something that I get a little frustrated with, because maybe I didn't invent those lyrics, but I did put them on an item in a certain way and do a certain thing, and it is mine. Yeah. I think. So sorry to kind of go on that little tangent.
Oh, no.
Feel free to do what you want with that. But that's, so working with the band, like I said, the band is very clear. And there are a lot of Etsy sellers that do what I do.
Yeah.
You know, we all have our own thing, you know, but selling fan art, there's a lot of fan art out there. It's
Okay.
it's amazing.
So this website where there's a guide for other makers of fan art, you said is PHANART.
Yeah.
Okay. I will look them up online, and then I will put a link to the website in the notes for this episode for anyone who wants to go on there and do some research for themselves and just learn some more about what's okay and what you can and can't do with fan art.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about coming on to Etsy. So when you opened your store, you had already had a foray online. You'd had your own website and you'd sold on eBay in the past.
Yeah.
Can we talk about first what those experiences were like? Because usually you hear out there in the internet marketing world, before you start your own website, sell somewhere else, get a following, and then start your own, because it's harder to market an independent site than it is to sell on a platform like eBay or Etsy that already exists. But you did it the other way around. How easy or how hard was that to do?
It was so much work. It was so much work. I mean, I loved it. It was wonderful, but my thing was sewing. I was a seamstress and I made clothing, but I ended up spending a lot of hours learning how to write HTML code and building my website and creating logos and doing all the marketing, making sure that people had my links posted on their sites. And I closed my website down about 13 years ago, and I really have no desire to go back to that.
What's involved in closing down a website? Do you just stop paying for the domain name, or did you officially just rip out pages? And how does that work?
If I recall correctly, my website stayed up until the domain name expired, because I did have my own domain. Okay. And I just removed all of the items for sale.
Okay. So was it mainly just an e-commerce site, or were you also doing some blogging and producing content, or was it primarily just for selling?
I had to think. It was primarily just for selling. Although I had a lot of things going. I had some affiliates going on, I had a book list with links to barnesandnoble.com. Okay. And so I had some affiliate stuff going on alongside of my handmade items.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the time, was there the option to use a website builder? You know how now, if you want to sell on your own website, you go get a Shopify site, which I think will handle all the coding and that back end stuff. Was that available then, or did you just want to learn how to build a website yourself?
No, it really wasn't available then. It just really wasn't. Okay. There were a couple websites that gave you free. It was like a build your own free website. Yeah. They were very, very basic. Mm-hmm. Everybody's page looked the same, and it was not the ideal situation for e-commerce. So, no, it was, that's what it was. I had my website, and I put a lot of time and energy into it for about 10 years.
Whoa, that's a long time to hang in there.
Yeah. It was one of my jobs, though. That was one of my jobs. I considered it one of my jobs.
Okay. So, was it making money? Was it, at least for the 10 years, was it worth the time you were putting into it?
I think so. I think it was. Because I sell, some people sell online and then they go to craft shows as well. I don't do that, but when I go see fish, I sell my goods there.
Oh,
In the parking lot, there's a lot of vending. It's very, very common.
okay.
And so it kind of has been hand in hand. So it was like I would sell when I went to shows, and then I would sell online. And when I had my website, I really did a lot of custom work. A lot of custom orders.
Oh, I
So
see.
yeah, it was probably like 80% of what I did was custom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you do that now on Etsy? Do you accept custom orders, or you just do all, not all standardized, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't really advertise or put it out there that I'm willing to do custom work.
Mm-hmm.
I have. If
Okay.
somebody contacts me, and asks me nicely, I'm happy to do it. Gosh, I love working with other people,
Yeah.
but no, as a rule, I pretty much have everything ready to ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then from your website, you moved over to eBay. Were you selling the same things on eBay?
I was. And
Okay.
actually eBay was kind of before my website, and
Oh,
around
okay.
the same time. I did eBay at the same time that I had my website. Um and I did some of that was custom work. I would do listings for, custom handmade patchwork pants, and
Oh,
it was very lucrative. People paid a lot of money for quality work.
I didn't
Yeah.
even know that you could sell handmade items or do custom work and sell on eBay.
Well, we did. I wasn't the
Wow.
only one. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Now, are you still on eBay or have you left that?
I pretty much have left it.
Okay.
I did list a couple things and sell a couple things
Mm-hmm.
last year, but I need to kind of keep things as streamlined as possible,
Yeah.
and I just want to stick with Etsy. It works for me. I don't need another platform. I don't want to learn or deal with another
Another
platform.
one. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. So coming on to Etsy, what did that look like for you? So you had sold online before, you figured you weren't going to get back into e-commerce again, but something happened and you ended up on Etsy. You were involved in the community action, I think that's what it's called, where you got
Yeah.
part of the asset building program. What's that,
Yeah.
and how did that help you get back into online selling?
So I was presented with the most amazing opportunity, and I'm really glad that I have the chance to talk a little bit about it right now. Community action agencies are in every county in the United States. Every county of every state has community action. And I was involved in an asset building program for people who were hoping to start or expand a small business. It was a matched savings program where I deposited a certain amount of money into a savings account every month, and it was matched 3 to 1. I met
Wow.
Yeah, so it was like I saved money to start a business, but it was matched 3 to 1.
Mm.
And I was also, given some guidance. I worked with an advisor to create a business plan, but I was saving money, and I knew I wanted to get back into selling, my work. I knew I wanted to get back into that. I didn't know if it was like, am I going to start doing the craft fairs again?
Mm.
I knew I did not want my own website. No interest in that.
Okay.
None. Did not want to do that. And but I had all this money to use to start a small business, and I asked a friend of mine who he's my real intelligent MBA friend, and I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "If I were you, I would either look at Amazon Handmade or Etsy." And right then it was like, okay, Etsy, because I had been buying on Etsy for a long time. I knew what Etsy was, but I never considered it for myself until he said he's very in tune with what's going on with money and business, and I just really respect, his opinions, and that's what he said. And so I took my money and I made my plan to open my Etsy store. And honestly, when I opened my shop, I was really looking at it as, this is my hobby. This is my thing that I do, that I love, that makes me money that I use to support my other hobby, which is going to see fish. They don't play in Minnesota. I travel all over the United States to see them,
Really?
And that's how I get my money. I mean, I have a job. I can live within my means, but my Etsy store pays for me to travel. It's my making that pays for my fun. Like, one hobby subsidizes the other. And but when I opened my store, I thought, yeah, I'm just going to do this thing, and this is my hobby, and let's just see how it goes. And wow. Honestly, like, I did not plan for success. I didn't.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask about that. But before we move on to planning for success and just having a I forget what they call it when you make a forecast for your business. I just want to mention that the community action agencies are available across the United States. And I will put a link to a website where you can click on that to find your local community action agency. I am so sorry. I don't know if this is a program that's available outside of the US. So if you're listening to this and you don't live in the US, I'll do some research, but I know we use different terms and phrases in the US than outside. So I might not be able to find anything, but hopefully wherever you are, there are programs that will be supportive of small businesses like this. But for everyone in the US, I will link to that website for community action agencies.
Excellent.
So let's talk about planning. Two types of planning. So planning before you came on Etsy, how much preparation did you do to set yourself up to be successful? And I don't even know if that question is relevant since you just said you didn't plan for the success.
I did nothing.
So you literally just opened up your Etsy shop and started listing?
Yeah. And I was listing, like, when I first opened my store, it was just a little mishmash of items. I had jewelry and magnets, but there was no common theme. It was just random earrings here, bracelet there. And I posted my link on social media. Like, I opened an Etsy store, and sales started coming right away. But what was selling was the fan art.
Okay.
So I quickly realized, okay, wait, my store is a jumbled mess of weird stuff. To me, it all makes sense. It's all stuff I like.
Yeah.
But so I got rid of the other things, and I just left the fan art there. Okay. I did that soon.
And then you started to grow from there. So
absolutely.
All right. So then how now are you dealing with having a successful Etsy store? And as we record this, we're entering into, well, actually, we're not entering. I believe we're in the thick of the busy holiday selling season.
Yeah.
How is that working for you? How did you plan for this Q4 selling period in advance?
Yeah. So last year I had my shop was open at Christmas time, and I definitely had a rush of sales that I wasn't expecting at all. I did not sleep for a month. So this year I thought I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna build up my stock. I'm going to order extra shipping
Oh,
supplies.
good. Yeah.
What else did things like that. Okay, so I did that, and you know what? I'm running out of shipping supplies, and my stock is selling out. um I don't know how if you can be ready because you don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if how what's gonna happen. And this so Christmas, it's holidays, so you can kind of guess. Okay, busy time, but last August, second week of August, may as well have been Christmas for me. Second week of August, for whatever reason, my store exploded for a week straight. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Random.
Well, Julie, have you tried to compare your sales cycles to Fish's touring cycle?
Yeah, I do think that is part of it.
Yeah.
Because people start like right now, people are buying to get ready to go to the New Year's Eve shows. So people are buying their gear, their pins and fun stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then after the shows, well, then they're going to want their souvenirs. So then they go back to Etsy so Fish is playing, and they did this past summer too, but they're at Madison Square Gardens in New York City. Well, there's not a parking lot for people to set up shop to vend. So your only choices to do your souvenir shopping is to either visit one of the fan art shows, because fan art holds shows for us, at Hotel Pennsylvania, and also there's a bar, American Beauty. So they're doing fan art shows, but people go to Etsy, like Fish fans. There's a lot of Etsy sellers that are Fish fans, and people go there looking for their T-shirts and their stickers.
So even in a small niche like this, where it's fans of one particular brand, there's still competition, but not severe, like not oversaturated, would you say?
Right.
Okay.
I think there are so many brilliant artists doing so many awesome things. Okay. It's amazing. And there's room for all of us. There is.
So now, since you have a very defined market, you know what they like, you know what they want, because you're part of that market. Do you find that knowing your market so well that you need to do as much advertising, and by that I don't necessarily mean paid advertising, but as much promotion and marketing, like on social media and off of social media, if you will, just to get traffic to your shop? Or do you think that there's just momentum gained from just the fandom of the band?
I think it's both. Okay. Social media is really important. It is. And I have to stay on there. I did in October, I took a Facebook and an Instagram break. I took about 3 weeks where I wasn't posting or responding to anything. And I didn't notice a decline in my sales necessarily, but it's important because things like this happen. I belong to a Facebook group that has, thousands of people, women, Fish fans on there. And someone will post like, who is it that makes that thing? I want to buy one. And then like 5 other people will tag me and post my link for me. But I participate in those groups socially too. So it's not all business. I'm not just there to promote, but having the social media is really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have to say, a correlation to what you just said, where you participate socially in the groups, you're not just there to promote your products, carries over into a lot of the teaching that we hear about how to market our businesses. Like I've read, things where they say, join groups and add value to the group. So if somebody asks a question about something about, answer the question and just keep helping and contributing to the group. And eventually, you'll be recognized as knowing what you're talking about. I read things that say you should do that. In this case, it's different in that it's not different, but different in the fact that it's fun. It has to do with something that's a hobby and something that you enjoy, but it still correlates because you're in these groups contributing as a fellow fan and talking about, the group and what you like about the group and whatnot. And as time has gone by, you've become recognized for the fan art that you make. So I think there's a parallel there. Can we talk about your day-to-day? What does a typical day look like for you? I'm sure this season is probably not typical for you, but on a regular basis, what does running your Etsy shop look like?
Oh, okay. Well, a regular, just ordinary time when I'm not busy with a holiday is I get up early. I get up very early in the morning to take care of most of my packing my orders. So usually I'm up at about 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I'm up at 4:30 and I'm packing orders and I'm drinking my coffee and I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram until I go to work.
Sorry, Julie, can I ask, when you say you're on there, are you on there participating in groups or are you on there promoting?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah, both. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't even tell you. They're just intertwined. It's both.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm up early and just getting all that stuff taken care of because then I'm usually out the door by 7 to go to work. And we talked briefly about community action. I now work for community action. So and I just absolutely, I love my job so much. So I spend, I'm at work all day. Thank goodness for the Etsy seller app on my phone.
Yeah.
I do almost all of my management on my phone. With my Etsy shop. And so I really like having that app. And so when I'm at work, when I'm on breaks, when I'm waiting for a client, I'm answering messages on Etsy. Also, still like social media. Yeah, I'm keeping up with that all the time. And then I come home in the evening and I usually take about a couple hours to relax, and then I spend maybe another 3 or 4 working on Etsy.
Okay. So it takes up a lot of time in your day. Do you anticipate or do you have a plan for, is it in your future plans to perhaps do this full time, or are you happy with the way things are?
I'm happy with things the way they are. Honestly, what I hope, my son is 13 years old. I really hope that I give him his first job. I hope that I want to teach him how to do this. And so I like things how they are. I have no plans, even though my boss is a little worried hearing those cha-chings all day coming out of my office. I said, I promise I am not going to leave you. I like how things are. Yeah.
So I like that you mentioned because you work, sometimes people like to keep the two separate. They don't share with coworkers that they have this business on the side, because like you said, some employers might get antsy or anxious about what your plans are for the future. But it sounds like you have very open communication with your employer about what your plans are, and so it doesn't feel like it's creating a problem.
Right. My job, my boss, like my coworkers, the people I work with are very, very supportive of me and my Etsy adventure. Very supportive. They cheer when they hear a cha-ching. Yeah. But, like I said, I decided to get back into this and get on Etsy through a program through community action. So the people I'm working with and for now are the people that got me going, and I am one of their success stories.
Oh yes, that's true. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So
in preparing to come on Etsy, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking right now that they want to open an Etsy shop? They're still planning for it. What's the most important piece of advice you would give that person right now?
I would say spend some time doing your homework. There are a lot of seller resources available, not just the seller's guide, but there's videos on YouTube and like your podcast, this podcast. There are Facebook groups for Etsy sellers. I have learned so much from other people from utilizing those different resources. And I do talk to people on a regular basis that are saying, I think about opening an Etsy store. And I tell them, join a Facebook group, start reading the seller's guide, start learning about it before you do it, because it's so easy. They ask me, is it easy to have an Etsy store? Well, yes and no. I mean, to set it up and to use the platform is very easy. I find it to be very, very user friendly, and you don't even have to have a computer. You can just on your phone, boom, you've got an Etsy store. And there should be a checklist that you have to go through that says, like, do you have shipping supplies? Yes. And things like that. But I would say just do your homework before you open up. Because I have an example. So I know a woman who made a really cool thing, and she opened an Etsy store and she listed it, and she posted to Facebook groups like, I have an Etsy store, I made this thing, and she got a number of sales right away, which is fantastic. The thing is 2 weeks later, all over social media, people are saying, where's my thing? Because she didn't have shipping supplies. She didn't know how to do or know that she could do shipping labels through Etsy. She didn't have the money set aside to buy. So she had to wait for her first deposit before she had the money to ship the items. And when you're first starting out and you have 4 people that are like, where's my thing? And what if they leave a not so good review? That's and all it is how she didn't know. She didn't know. And something like that could be really hard for a store if you are just getting started and you get some reviews that are less than 5 stars. That can really
kill you.
That can really, really hurt you. And if you don't know what you're getting into, so that was just one example of why it's important to do your homework. But yeah, that's what I would recommend.
I do agree with you, Julie, in that, yes, it's easy to open up an Etsy store, but what I found is in line with what you're saying is there's so many little things that a new seller wouldn't think all the way through do that happen, that are really important but seem really minor, and they're not, not intuitive. Now, the only way I knew, like you said in this example, say with the shipping supplies, the only way I knew when I opened my Etsy store to have shipping supplies ready was because I had sold on eBay, and the exact same thing happened to me. I didn't know anything. I just put something on there to see what would happen. And then the next thing I know, I'm fishing in the garage looking for a box to ship something in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Then I
know.
realized, oh wait, I have to send it, and to send it, I have to put it in something. And
Yep.
so yes.
Oh
and
yeah.
even though the seller guide, the seller handbook, like you said, has a lot of information and is very helpful, it's hard to also to navigate that, like for a new seller, because
Yeah.
he or she will not know what he or she doesn't know. And so, yes, you have the book there, but, what do you read first? Where do you start? Where do you go from there? Do you start with the legal side? Do you start with shipping? Do you start with marketing and branding? And that's one of the issues I have with the seller handbook, is that as great as the information is, it's hard for new sellers to navigate it. And, that's why, I have to do a shameless plug here. The product I'm working on is to kind of help with that, is help new sellers navigate through, like, this is what you need to do. Check that off. Then do this, then do this, then do this. So that by the time you open your doors and, if hopefully you get that first sale soon enough, everything is already there. You have your scale, you have your envelopes or your shipping boxes, how to print out labels from Etsy, and it's all there. So you're not panicking and you're not risking getting negative reviews in the beginning, and your buyers aren't waiting 2 weeks, to get something that you have or you could have ready in 3 days or what have you. So that's good advice.
Yeah, I agree with you about the seller's handbook, how it can be difficult to navigate. I think for me, my go-to source when I have questions is a Facebook group. I belong to a couple Etsy seller Facebook groups, and I go there.
Yeah, and you want to go to a group where people are talking and not just posting links to their products, because I question how helpful that is too. If in a group of sellers, all you're doing is posting links to your products, because sometimes other sellers aren't your market. That's probably not where you should be posting your links. Not that there's, I'm sure there are places that you can, that would be more helpful, but it's good to go where people are talking and you can ask questions and get your questions answered, and then answer other people's questions too, because every day you sell on Etsy, you learn something. So I think everybody has something to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So do you ever, because you're your own customer, do you ever run out of ideas of things to make?
No.
How do you
Never.
keep track of what product lines or products you want to make down the line?
I do it in a couple ways. First of all, my head is ready to explode all of the time because I have so many ideas. I have things that I've been thinking about for years, and then I have the idea I got this morning. I have supplies, like I haven't made this one thing yet, but I have everything I need to do it. And when I get the time, I know what I'm going to do. Yeah. I've got a lot of that going on around here.
Yeah.
A lot of that going on, but no, I never run out of ideas. But a lot of times I need to maybe learn a new skill in order to make that thing I want to make.
Yeah.
So,
where do you typically go to learn? YouTube?
Yeah, and I'm really a trial and error kind of person as well. Yeah, I might just do it until I get it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning, are there any resources or tools that you're currently using that help you either run your business or just be better at what you're doing that you don't mind sharing?
Sure. Yeah, I use Etsy Rank sometimes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I check in with Etsy Rank to help with to keep up with keywords.
Okay.
Which I'm still learning I'm still learning about what Etsy Rank has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I don't use it to its fullest capacity, but
I see.
I definitely check in with Etsy Rank. Um, I use I use some apps on my phone that really help me a lot. I use an app called Expensify.
Expensify. Okay.
Yeah, it's called Expensify. I'm pretty sure it might have been a free app. If I did pay for it, it wasn't more than a couple dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But that app is really helpful for tracking my expenses and mileage because something else that I have to do is deal with taxes now.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So I had to like find a tax person. That's really that's like what I have going on right now is, oh my goodness, I've got a tax thing. I never thought about having a tax issue. So
Mm.
I use the Expensify app, um, and Etsy Rank, and the Sell on Etsy app I could not go without. Uh I use a photo editing app called Snapseed
Okay.
because I take all my pictures with my phone and do my listings with my phone, and so I edit my photos on my phone with Snapseed. That really helps me too. So those are the main things, really.
Okay. Wow, that's impressive that you do everything on your phone. So it makes it easier, I guess, in a way, because it's all
Yeah,
contained.
and I can work wherever I am.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I will have links to the resources that Julie mentioned. Etsy Rank, I'm glad you brought that up again because that recently came up on my radar and I'm just learning so much about it. And thank you to Navarre for telling me about your experience with Etsy Rank. I think I want to reach out to the people behind it or the person behind it and maybe have a chat with them as well, because I know that the tool does so much and a lot of it is free from what I understand and from what I've
Yeah.
seen. And so I think it's a good alternative that we should learn more about. So thank you for reminding me. I need to reach out to them.
Yeah.
Now, Julie, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch with you?
The best way is to send me a convo on Etsy.
Okay.
Really, honestly, because like I use email, but I'll tell you the truth, Etsy messages get priority over email.
Are you sure you're not going to do this full time one day?
I know, right? It's I'm an overachiever. That's all.
All right. Julie, thank you so much for sharing your Etsy story and your experience and all what you've learned about selling on Etsy with us. I've really enjoyed learning about just what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I know that what you've shared will be helpful to someone listening. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.
Hey, I just want to give an update on the subscription service I'm working on. You can get more details at convome.com/read to me. And mainly, I just wanted to say I am planning to launch in the new year. And as I mentioned in this episode, if you feel overwhelmed trying to read all the articles in the seller handbook and you don't know where to start, or you want to learn about something specific, and you just need help or guidance in what information is out there, this particular service will be very useful for you. I'm working on streamlining and organizing it in a way that's not overwhelming so that you can get the information you need, get the action steps that you need do what you need to do, and then move on. It's going to be an audio resource, so you'll be able to just continue to work and do what you're doing while you listen. And then if there's something you need to do, like in your shop or fix, you can listen and do it as you listen, and I guide you through how to do whatever it is we're talking about. So again, there's more information at convome.com/read to me. Thank you to everyone who has submitted a form sent me an email saying ping me when it's ready or something similar. I have you on a list. I have your name. I've tried to respond to everyone. I know I haven't gotten back yet to everyone who has submitted that form, but I will try to respond to each person personally, just so that you know I'm putting your name on that list. I won't be adding you to a mailing list because you just want the notification. So once it's live, I will send you an email personally to let you know that it's live and you can sign up. Again, that's convome.com/read to me to get on the early notification list. All right, thanks. Bye.